Corsair, our non-stimulant, thermogenic, and recomposition agent. Corsair is a super cool product because it's gonna help you utilize turning your white adipose tissue, which is for storage of fat, into brown adipose tissue, which is gonna help with energy production. So this is great to use for a competition prep or in your weight loss phase. So you can stack it with a stimulant-based thermogenic, or you could also use it in your off-season or muscle building phase to help keep you lean and mean. Corsair.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Pro Physique Code. This is going to be a really cool episode because the first big pro show of the year just happened, and we're going to talk about the bikini standard, which I think was very interesting. We're going to talk about some placings that were probably unexpected. And also we're going to review the weekend of the Arnold Classic, which I think we can all agree it's back. Like, this was the best Arnold in a few years, definitely since the 2020 year where it didn't happen. But even before that, I was starting to feel in 18 and 19, it was a little bit overwhelming. This year was just the perfect mixture. So let's, we all kind of had very similar experiences. In fact, we were all on the same, well, Evan was on a flight out of Orlando, but me and Lexie were on the same flight out of Tampa. And our weekend kicked off with a pretty cool moment, right, Lex?
It sure did. Yeah. It's always funny because I do feel like a lot of these Tampa flights, like direct Tampa flights to big bodybuilding expos like this, like the Arnold or the Olympia, you always get a couple of people on the flight, and we just so happened to run into Mr. Olympia, and Paul invited him to sit in that middle seat in between us.
I was sure he wasn't going to accept, but he did. And, I've actually met his wife. She's really nice. And I've obviously seen Derek, and I'm sure, Evan, you've seen Derek a bunch in the gym.
Yeah.
He's genuinely one of the nicest people in the sport. So yeah, he accepted. He said, yeah, I'll take that seat. I think he was, which was funny because, when we got to talking to him, he's like, it's a little bit weird because I just got off of a first class flight from South Korea where I literally slept flat for like 8 hours. Now I'm on a middle seat in Southwest to Ohio.
Yep. I know. I found that funny too. He was a trooper with that one, but it was so funny because I knew I've seen him train before. I've met him a few times, but he's big, like so much muscle. Cause I felt like I couldn't even move like my left elbow or else I'd bump into him. And I'm sure he wouldn't have cared, but it was kind of funny.
Yeah, it was anyway, it was fun to talk with him because, he definitely had some thoughts on the sport, on the placings. He's got his opinions, and I'll say this about the guy: he pays attention to what people say about him. So don't be two-faced with Derek because he hears it. So it was good, and it was funny. We also bumped into him. I did on my flight home. He was on my same flight, so we just got the same flights. He didn't sit middle that time.
That's too funny. Yeah.
I remember. So I was sitting with like two older ladies on the flight home, and we were talking about our dogs. And they see Derek coming down the aisle, and they're like, oh, he's big. I was like, that's the best bodybuilder on the planet right there. That's the best. And they're like, wow. And I showed her the pictures, and they're like, you look big in clothes, but when you see those pictures, they're like, oh my Lord, that's him. I'm like, yep. So
That's so funny. Yeah.
Scaring the old ladies, Paul.
they were funny. I don't know, like, sometimes I don't talk to nobody, but so the lady had a picture of a golden retriever on her bag. And, kind of looked like Stevie, except, the red color. And I said, is that your dog? And she's like, actually, yes, she got a picture of her dog on her bag. So then we talked about dogs and stuff.
You never know who you're going to run into on an airplane. Cause like, I'm the same way, Paul. Sometimes I'll talk to people. Sometimes I don't. It really just depends on usually what time the flight is. But I remember one time, this was years ago. It was a flight, I think, from like St. Louis to Tampa or something. And the guy I sat next to was Mario Lopez's agent. And like we literally talked the entire time. He gave me his number, like, and because he was like trying to invite me to something as Mario was in town. Oh, it was right before New Year's Eve. That's what it was. So yeah, so that was kind of cool. I mean, you just never know who you're gonna bump into, right?
Never know. And sometimes they're chatty, and like these ladies were definitely interested in bodybuilding, and they heard about the Arnold and all that stuff. They were from Ohio, so they were just, it was fun to chat with them. But
yeah.
the weekend got off to a great start. That would have been super early on Thursday, right? We left very early.
Yeah, we had an early flight on Thursday. We did have to sit on the ground or sit for like an hour before we could take off because there was like some traffic, but yeah, it was a pretty easy flight. And then we got there at like what, 10:30, 11.
Yeah, and then that's where you and I departed. Like that's when I met up with Evan, and then me and Evan had we drove straight to a photo shoot for Core Nutritionals in some random warehouse in some weird part of Columbus. We just walked in, and then that's that's when the fun began for me. Did you guys meet up with Angels right then?
Yeah, so I think you saw them at the airport. I met up with
That's
Kara
right.
and Savannah, and then I roomed with them. So we Ubered to. We were in the one of the host hotels. I think it was called the Sonata. So it was nice because I really liked it because it was there. I mean, it wasn't right by the convention center, but there were the sky bridges, so I was able to just walk back and
Oh
forth the
wow.
whole weekend. So it was
Nice.
really nice on like Friday morning when we had the amateur show. I was able to get up, do my cardio, walk to the amateur show and then walk back to the hotel, do some work, and then go back to the expo. So yeah, I met up with them, and then we actually on Thursday, what we did was we couldn't check into our room for a little while, so we set up the booth that day, and it's always kind of neat to see kind of behind the scenes of what goes into putting up
Yeah.
putting up everything in the expo hall because I mean there's a lot that goes into some of those booths, especially the ones that are really done up, and I'm sure like the core nutritionals one, I mean they always go above and beyond, and their booth looked amazing. So I can imagine it probably took a lot to build that booth.
Oh, they had a whole team actually. So after we went and did the whole thing with the photo shoot, we went and checked into the hotel. The first night it was just me and Evan, so we stayed right at the Sheraton, right down the street.
Mhm.
Then we walked over to the gym, and I was excited because I got to meet Tavia for the first time, and I was pretty blown away. You know, like I've seen pictures of her, but in person, she's very muscular and like very stunning. So I was like, cool, this is going to be fun. So there's that. And then also I got to see all my competitors that were competing on Friday. So it was a good chance to like that pros gym. It's a mess in there and in a good way, but it's just like, man,
There's a
it's
lot
just,
going on.
yeah, there's like equipment on top of equipment. And then you'll have like one person training and then they'll have like a photographer, a coach, you know,
Yeah, Gilko was there filming as well. We saw
yeah,
Laur, we
Gilco, a
saw
bunch of
Angelica.
photographers. And then, like, I don't know, someone like Phil Heath will walk in. They're just people. They're everywhere. So that gym is literally a few steps from the convention center. So um we got to do a bunch of like training, and then they have a posing room downstairs, which was kind of fun because we actually bumped into Phoebe before we did our posing session. So I got to catch up with her. I love Phoebe. She's one of those, I listen to her podcast and I watch her videos. She's fun to like, follow, very open about her journey. So I got to see her a little bit, but right away you're in it. I mean, it's like, there's literally not 1 second of the weekend where you're not at least have the opportunity to be involved in stuff. And over the years, I've learned really to just be like, just say yes to everything and then sleep when you get home.
Yep.
That's literally my motto.
Yep. I'm a sucker for my sleep, but this is one of those weekends where I was just like, I don't care. I'll stay up as late as I need to, wake up whenever, and then just sleep when I'm home. And I definitely did that. Yeah, I went to bed at like so early when I got home and got a good night of sleep to catch up.
Yeah. Yeah. So the only person I didn't get to see in the gym was Samantha. So me and Evan took a Uber over to where she was staying at an Airbnb with my other client, Chris Nicole, who's like one of her besties. And Samantha, I don't know if Evan, if you've ever met her before, but
Yeah. I met her when I was helping Chris when you could be at the show at the
oh,
class
that's
last
Girl
year.
Power Show. That's
Yep.
right. Probably one of the biggest personalities I've ever been around. Samantha is
Yes.
just like, I mean, when she hugs me, it kind of hurts. Like she's like just big, bubbly, loud person, and it's so fun to be around her. And she was so excited. We decided to change her suit. She won an overall one suit and she's like, wanted to change it. I'm like, no, you don't change what's not broken. But then I was like, I agreed with her. It was the right move. So that was it. And then I think me and Evan from there, we just kind of had the night to ourselves. And then I got a text message from Brian DaCosta and he's like, hey dude, we haven't actually hung out in a while. You want to have dinner? And I was like, perfect. Let's go have dinner with Brian DaCosta and his girlfriend. And they said a name of a restaurant, which I'd never heard of before. Very
Remember
glad
it now.
Jeff Ruby's Steakhouse. So that was one of the best, if not the best steak I've ever had. I think Evan concurred.
I 100% agree. That is
Yeah.
a place that you can't oversell it.
Yeah,
It
I
was the
think
best
that's
steak
going to
I've
be
ever
on
had.
the regular list every time I go to Ohio now.
Absolutely fantastic. Just,
Yeah,
oh,
and it's right across the street from the convention center.
Did
And the
you guys
one
did you go to the athlete meet and greet on Thursday night?
I intended to, but the day was running long. Ari and Daraja didn't want to go. Well, Tavia doesn't really speak English super comfortably, and she had her photographer friend Sebastian with her, and I just didn't. I mean, I just didn't feel like, you know, being
Yeah,
shoulder to shoulder. I don't know.
it
and
was.
also too, we're in a unique position to where we know most of these people personally anyways. And
Yeah.
that's kind of the scene for people that don't have these personal connections with these athletes for them to be able to spend time
Absolutely.
with them as well.
Yeah, as much as I'd love to catch up with Laura Lee or Angelica, like I'd also feel like if I'm talking to them, I'm just taking up their time from someone who hasn't met
Yeah.
them or doesn't DM them or talk to them or text them. Like you said, we're pretty friendly with most of these people. So, and I'd rather go wait in their line at like the expo or something than take up their time. And yeah.
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 And you had some pretty big name bodybuilders. So you add those guys, like people line up around the block to see Hottie and to
It
see Samson, and yeah.
Yeah, I went to, so we had to go and deliver a couple of suits to a couple of the pros. So I did go to the meet and greet, but more so just to kind of, I don't know, be there. We didn't stay that long. But I did get to meet Angelica. So she's one I had never met like face to face before. But yeah, there were definitely some lines like Laura Lee's line, Hottie's line, very, very long. But it's so different because I remember vividly the meet and greet at the Olympia, and it was in that big, like, was it, like, auditorium essentially, and this one's just in like a small ballroom, so it was just very different. But yeah, definitely very crowded and condensed and longer lines for a couple of the athletes for sure.
Yeah, so as much as I love those, I think at that point we had had a very long day, and that it would have been interrupting my dinner with Brian, who's not only a friend but a client, and worked out a deal where we're going to go out and do some seminars at his girlfriend's gym in Denver. So like
Nice.
this is these are networking, not necessarily like networking from a place of like business first, but you just talk to people that have similar interests, that have, similar stories, and you go, oh, well, you're in Denver. Daraja's moving out to Denver. Why don't we do some seminars at your gym? And she was like, let's do it. That's awesome. So, that's really for me, what the great takeaway from these weekends is, I just made a post about it. 16 years ago, I went to the Arnold. I didn't know a single person. Me and Misty went on a date to go to Ohio to go see bodybuilders. I think I wanted to see like Jay Cutler and Dexter Jackson in person. And I wanted to meet Lane Norton because he was my coach. 16 years later, like it's still the same for me. I'm still going there to like meet people and see people. And I didn't know it was going to come of that, and it really changed my life. So
It's such a valuable thing to go to events like this if you get the chance. And I mean, even going alone. I mean, that's Paul, that's where I met you, is at I mean, it wasn't the Arnold, but it was an expo here in Florida.
Orlando. Yeah.
Right, yeah. It used to be the Europa. They don't have, it's not called that anymore. But like I had a good amount of clients that came and just up to the Arnold. And I always encourage my clients and just people in general to go to things like this. It can be scary, especially if you're newer in the industry, but like even just going by yourself, there's so much to do, and you just never know who you're going to bump into, who you're going to meet, who you're going to spark a conversation with. And
Right.
it's so valuable. It really is. And not to mention, I mean, every time I come home from these events, I think you said it earlier, Paul, like you just feel like your fire is ignited again. Not that you lost it, but you're just 10 times more enthusiastic about everything you're doing.
And I mean, let's be honest with this. Like these years in bodybuilding shows are long, right? They're long, long months. And we don't really have much of a break, right? We have kind of the end of November, December, January, part of February, then we have events starting again. And during that time, it's kind of our time to decompress and do life as well. And then this is kind of the Kickstarter of everything. And it's really, really easy to get motivated back with this.
Oh yeah. Well, so the the fun for this show was we all had clients competing on Friday too,
Mhm.
right? So, and they make this show just so enjoyable because the prejudging starts at 9. They go through. They did the men on Thursday. They did all the women on Friday. Started at 9. We were out the door with feedback by 11:30, right? If I'm not
Oh
Mhm.
yeah,
mistaken.
I was yeah, 11:30 because it started, I think it started at 8, but I remember I got there right at 8 to check on my client and walked her backstage. I know they weren't letting coaches go backstage, but like we walked her backstage around 8:15 and they were already like, "All right, all bikini like needs to be back here. We're going to start lining up." And I'm like, "Whoa." It was going by really really quickly because I think by the time you guys got there, they were like starting open bikini. So it was yeah, very
Masters Bikini had just walked out when we walked in the door, which I think we were downstairs like getting a Starbucks because I'm like, well, I don't want to get there right at 9, like, I don't want to watch, nothing against the other divisions, but like, I've watched enough bodybuilding shows. I prefer to just get in there when I need to be in there. And being such an early show, there's not a lot of coaching to do in the morning. Like everybody get up, get your makeup, get a meal in, get
And
backstage.
get
That's
over.
it. You
yeah.
know, um, you know, it's not like a noon show. Yeah, I got to see you and make sure we're doing the right things. But they look at how they looked the night before. We know how they're going to look the day of. It's not a whole lot of, you know, game day stuff. Just get your butt back there and don't miss the show. Cause actually, we knew a girl that missed her master's class, because it did go so fast. So yeah. And it was a small show, which is to be expected. They've made it a national qualifier. You're not getting the international competitors. It's at a weird time of year. And both my girls that won overalls this year were in the overall at this show, which I expected. I didn't expect them to do only 4 classes. Um, I didn't love it because I thought Dawn, Brooklyn, and Kalia could have all been class winners, but they were all in the same class. They all got in the top 5 of their class, but it was,
Yeah,
Yeah.
they only had yeah, it was weird. They only had 4 classes and I mean, A and B and D were pretty big and then C had 2, which
he
was
had
kind of
2.
odd, which is weird because normally class C is like the biggest class at most shows.
Well, and I'm a believer if they're going to do 4 classes, don't make it go by the height, make it line everybody up and break it up evenly.
Yeah.
Whatever. They have their rules in place, but that would have been my thought. Like I think class C had 2 and then class D had like 12.
Yeah.
Chuck a couple of those girls in C, man. Let's make it like 5 and 8 or 5 and 7 or
Yeah.
something. But whatever. I still, you said it best. I watched your video yesterday, Lexie. You did
Okay.
a whole video like reviewing. You said even though these shows are smaller, you still get some extremely gifted
Oh,
athletes coming
Yes, you
in,
do.
including the girl that won the overall. When she walked
she
out, me and Evan both looked at each other like, whoop,
There's your overall winner.
like
yep.
I said to Evan, I said, the only way she doesn't win the overall, because she was in A, I said, is if she gets in the overall and she just gets dwarfed because all the A girls look crazy until you stand them next to like a girl from class G, right?
Oh,
Um,
she was, I mean, what do you call it, Paul? Like the naked eye test or like you
yeah.
just as a coach as you go to more shows, you just it's hard to explain, but you sit there and you see somebody walk out. Sometimes all you have to see is them walk out and hit their front pose and you're like overall. And I know we all
Yep.
Yep.
three
We
thought
all
that.
three. I said nobody's beating this girl.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
Nope.
I think her name was Stacy. But yeah, she looked amazing. I mean, not only her physique, but she had amazing stage presence. She just really had the full package, and I'm really happy
Well,
that she
there was a girl, I think they said she had Down syndrome competing,
yes.
and that was her in her class. And when they walked out for the first groups, the girl looked a little kind of confused. Stacy got out of her pose, helped her, was talking to her, which, as a competitor, you want to show your best at all times, but she was more focused on that person than herself, which immediately you're endeared to this person. Then she hits her front pose and you're like, oh, geez.
Yes, she helped the girl walk out on her individual routine, and then when they lined up in comparisons, there was a couple occasions where she literally this is the girl that won the overall. This girl was, her goal is to turn pro, and if you win the overall here, then you get to compete in the Arnold on the pro show the next year. She got out of her front pose, helped the girl, and then got back in her front pose,
Yeah.
and that speaks volumes about her as a human being.
It
Yeah.
does.
Well, and then not to mention when they announced her the overall winner, somebody from her family threw her daughter up on stage, and just about every female in the audience started crying as this little girl runs up to her mom and gives her a hug. So that was a cool moment. And then Kalia and Sam were in the overall, and they do give out top 2. So they swapped Sam and Kalia. So Sam ended up getting her pro card. So very excited for her. Feedback was pretty clear, just grow some, but her front pose is about as striking as you can have. Now we just need to put a little more tissue on her backside. But so yeah, we're off to a good start. Great show. All of our competitors did great. Lexie, your girl looked amazing. Evan, pretty cool story. Your client was my client's mom, so there's a cool story there. Danica had Brianna there, who's just fantastic shape and muscle, right? Just needs a little more lower body to match her amazing upper body. But yeah, that was a pretty cool start to the weekend. Like, you know, it's not even noon on Friday. We've already had a show, got a pro card, got a bunch of pictures with our clients. I was feeling it. In my right arm, it got really long.
Yes, it did.
Funny,
Yes,
it's
it
just a
did.
funny picture. If you guys go on my Instagram, it's me and Evan standing behind all the competitors, but the way we're standing, it looks like Evan's hand is my hand, like 5 miles away. And we went and got a coffee, and Evan's name is now Aiden.
Yeah,
Apparently.
that was funny. Oh my gosh. Yeah, we were standing there waiting for our drinks, and I remember I heard them say like Aiden, and they said it a couple times. Nobody was like going up there, and I remember telling Evan, "Is that you? I think that's what you ordered." And sure enough, they interpreted Evan as Aiden, so that's his new nickname.
Yeah.
It's a good name.
So
I'll take it.
They even spelt it really weird too. It was like Adin. It wasn't even like the traditional way to spell Aiden.
Right. It was.
You can tell they were just like thinking on the fly and wrote down whatever.
There was a lot going on.
yeah.
Yes, 100%.
So that was Friday by noon, and now Friday we have the expo. The expo's kicking off. So we got to go over to the booth. I think I went and trained with Tavia
You did
right
that
after
morning,
that.
Friday morning.
Yeah, because that was her last workout before the show. So, and I was really happy. You know, you don't know, she's Italian, like not Italian, like I'm Italian, like from Italy. And so most of our communications are text and emails. I always noticed she replied to my text right away. So I was like, man, she doesn't speak English, but she sure replies quick. Well, it turns out she knows English very well. Maybe she's just not confident talking, because she would never want to do voice text, right? Or phone calls or FaceTimes. So, but it was really cool getting to know her. Like, she's, you know, as a coach, you just want someone that buys into your philosophies. And sometimes the upper level pros, you're just worried that they're like, you know, they're in it for themselves, and the thing that they want out of me is maybe a connection to the IFBB or whatever. But I'm a coach. I don't want that. I don't just want all the pros to work for me. I want them to actually coach. And she's very coachable. She's very open-minded. She's you know, drinking and eating. She's like, oh, I've never done it this way before. And I'm like, okay, good. That's why you hired me. And she's like,
She's a
great.
machine.
Yeah. And she even says, like, you write it down, I do it. And I'm like, perfect.
I mean,
So
there was a point to where we saw her in the room to where we're like, how much water do you have left? And she's like, right there. She had it all measured out in individual
yeah.
cups. Like, this girl's
Yeah.
a machine.
Yeah. I had her, whatever, water at 170 ounces for Friday, the day before the show. She literally had it measured out for the whole day, so she didn't miss it. And on show morning, when I went to see her at like 6 a.m., same thing. She said, you said this much with the meal, this much in between. And she had a big cup, little cup, big cup, little cup, right? And she had the salt next to it. So it just makes manipulating things very easy. When you feel like, okay, when I say something, it's going to happen. And you know, at the show, the one thing that surprised me was how nervous she got. You forget, like, she's been to the Olympia multiple times, but she's never been to the Arnold. And the Arnold is 11 girls this year, and there is like a sea of people. And I remember, like, I was sitting with Lexie, and I remember, like, she's not smiling, but you know, I also don't know her personality. So I'm like, okay, maybe that's just, no. After our prejudging, she's like, Coach, I was so nervous. And I was like, oh, it showed. Like, so, but that was, Friday was exciting because of that. I got to know her a little bit, checked in on her again one more time. But other than that, it was just, let's go to the expo and let's see our friends.
Yeah, Friday was a great day to attend the expo too. I think if anybody's listening and they are thinking of attending the expo, I mean, Saturday was great because we had the Bikini Pro Show, we had like the pros, but it got really packed on Saturday. I remember there was a time where I was with my client walking around and we literally got stuck in like just a mush of people. So I think if you want to go to the expo and be able to like move around and walk around a little bit easier, Friday was definitely a great day to do that.
Yeah, Friday afternoon and Sunday morning are definitely the freest and easiest you'll move. You'll miss some people Sunday because a lot of people fly out, but everyone's there Friday. Everyone there that has a booth, or they're there Friday afternoon. So that's really the sweet spot. Saturday you get Arnold walking through with his team, and it just locks up the whole place. Plus, bikini and men's physique, like no one moved during that time. So it was like that center stage. And I actually wanted to go over and see wellness on Friday. So we walked over to watch the wellness girls. And I think the
It's
wellness division to me is the division that has the biggest gap between the champion and anyone else. I just don't, there's no one that even like, is there no one even like challenges her right now?
when Issa, who was second, right, at
Yeah.
Olympia, when she walked out, I was like, good grief, that is so impressive. And then when Franciella walked out, I was like, oh, never mind. Not that she
Yeah, that's what
wasn't
it was like.
impressive.
It's like
It's on a whole nother
Francielle,
level.
amazing. Issa, amazing. And then to think that there's no one even close to Issa, and Issa's not really close to Francielle. The only ones that I haven't seen in a while are that have been that close are like Angela Borges and Urishna. But it's just so like she just is the criteria. She just literally is. I feel like as long as she's staying like that, they're not going to touch her. So it's cool to see it in person. But I mean, honestly, some of those girls make the other pros look like bikini. You're like, oh, they don't have a lot of muscle. Now they do, but she's just like
On a
I
whole nother
described her
level.
as like, she looks like two different bodies. She looks like a lower body is one way and her upper body is another. And I think that's what defines the division.
It was very, very impressive.
Yeah. And I love the stage. I love the lighting. Like it was very, the pictures and videos were fantastic. And that's what you also want to see, like the athletes look good. There's sometimes at these big shows, the stages can be distracting or the lighting can be off. But this, I thought it was great. Yeah.
And then we
Yeah.
watched Classic Physique.
Yeah. Classic was probably the more interesting division of the weekend. It was the one division with probably the major upset. I don't think there was another major upset. Yeah, there wasn't a major, but that Wesley Vissers, I think we were all like, it's Ramon's show. It's Ramon's show. And then Wesley walked out and we were like, hold up.
Hold up.
Hold up.
He's so tall
Yeah.
and so imposing.
Yeah.
And his conditioning, especially prejudging, was just lights out. And then a little bit of posing issues from the backside that, Kenny Wallach came over and was talking to us about that.
Yeah.
I think he left a little bit on the table there that we thought maybe would have cost him, but he didn't. He ended up pulling it off, which is,
I mean,
that's
again,
the
with the
coolest
eye
thing about
test,
the sport.
with the eye test, when he walked out and they put him in that call out side by side with Ramon, like you could not stop looking at him. You're almost looking at Ramon like, okay, the only thing you could say is that Ramon has a better taper to his waist, but quads, width, depth of muscle, detail, like it all was Wesley Vissers. He just looked more impressive. So what's cool is now you're going to have Wesley, Chris, Ramon, even Breon. That was the best Breon Anza I've ever seen.
Yeah. That's if anyone would be upset, I would be Breon. I think that's by far the best package he has.
I mean,
ever
you could be
brought.
upset, but I mean, what's he moving up to? Maybe third?
Third.
Like,
Yeah. Third. But he's
I
not
mean,
going to be just
I don't think
structurally.
structurally and those kind of things he stands next to the other guys, but his conditioning and muscle fullness was as
Awesome.
good as anybody's. Yeah.
Absolutely awesome.
So that's
Absolutely
always
awesome.
fun. And then, you go back to the booth, and I'll say this about the booth this year. It was the most interactive that Arnold has been in a long time. And by that, I mean, people that I've never met before coming up, talking about our transformation challenge, talking about YouTube, talking about competitors, like it felt like for a couple of years there, it was really only industry people at this event. And this year it felt like it was a lot of new people.
It was.
Yeah.
How was the Angels booth?
Oh, it was great. It was right next to the stage, which was kind of cool. Right next to the bathroom, which was really nice, especially on Saturday when like it
Lexie
was
requested that.
Yeah, right. But no, it was great. Yeah, there were a lot of girls that stopped by. Got to see Kathy Seitz, who did the fashion show.
Yeah.
She looked amazing. Trying to think if you had I know Viviana Santos did the fashion show
Yeah.
as well. So it was just, yeah, it was great.
Miriam Jenkins did it.
Yeah, Miriam did it. I feel like I'm definitely missing people too, but yeah, a couple girls did it. And it's always fun to kind of see how they like what they wear, because you can pretty much wear whatever suit you want, right? It doesn't have
Yeah.
to be like, I think Kathy did a pink suit. Not then that's probably not a color she would do on.
Kathy looked amazing. I'll be honest. She
She
That's right.
retired
did.
last year. She did a couple pro shows, placed as high as third. She won an overall at a national show. So she had a great career. And she just said, last year I'm just gonna move on with my life and do something else. She's engaged now. But she looks incredible. She's not tracking. She's, obviously she's a pro at nutrition at this point. She doesn't need to track, but it makes me excited that people can come in to the bikini, have a great career like she had, and transition into regular life. And for her to just be so vibrant and happy, and she looked strong and lean. She's not
Yeah.
even trying to compete. She just looked great.
She looked like she could.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
told her, I said, you're going to get people asking you when your show is because you're so lean. And she's like, I'm not even tracking. This is just, she's a leaner individual. She's, but yeah, it's just, that was good to see her. And she came
Yeah.
by the core booth.
I even actually had thinking of it now because I was either walking around the expo or working the angel booth, and there were actually two guys that came up to me. One is Sarah Winstead's client, and I think he's doing the transformation challenge, but he came up to and introduced himself. And then there was also another guy who came up to me. I don't know if he did the transformation challenge, but he said he's followed us for a while. His name was Chris, and he came up with his wife and took a picture. So it's always cool, like even just to meet people like that, like that just they don't
I had a
compete
lot of people
so
mention the
much.
podcast. I think
Yeah.
going to these events, that's when I realized the reach of the podcast. I can see the YouTube, I can see the numbers. Podcast doesn't really show me the numbers as much. Our studio page has been growing and the views have been increasing on there. So it's happening, but the podcast is just unique in that, like, I feel like it has a bigger reach than you can grasp just from the content or from the numbers. So yeah, they're very well received. So all right, so let's get into I guess Friday night. What do we do, Evan? We just went and watched the live stream for prejudging.
Yeah. Yeah. We went and watched the prejudging live stream, had a little bit
Shout
of
out to the
food.
Arnold for having a free live stream. That's huge.
That was
That was
awesome,
big.
and it was good too. Like it didn't, I mean, from what I experienced, because I watched finals on Saturday live stream, it didn't glitch. It was really good.
Yeah, we had a few moments. I think it was mostly the moments of our network at our house, but
Mhm.
once we got it working, we found a burger joint next door, a liquor store not too far away. So we just had burgers, wings, and some tequila and watched the live stream with Brittany, Jamaica, Steven, me and Evan. It was pretty awesome.
Went a
Yeah.
bad night, especially after a long day, and we knew Saturday was going to be a long day. So
Yeah.
it was a good way to try to get a little bit of relaxation in.
Yeah, Saturday I had set my alarm, I think, for 6:30 to go see a Tavia after her hair and makeup, just to, and so yeah, I knew I wasn't gonna get much sleep, but who needs sleep when you got loud music, energy drinks, and bodybuilding?
Oh yeah, you get all the like you get so many free energy drinks.
Yeah.
This may sound kind of like silly, but this is totally something I would do. I definitely got my fair share of free energy drinks, but I don't allow myself to have more than one a day. So I was like, well, I'll just bring some back in my suitcase. I was kind of worried that my suitcase was going to be really, really heavy, and like over the limit when I flew back, but I somehow got it right within where it needed to be, and so now I have energy drinks to last me for like the next maybe few weeks. So
Yeah, that's the one thing that you do not have to worry about. If you need some caffeine, just turn your head to the left or right, and you're gonna find a line that
oh
has some
yeah.
free energy drinks.
Yeah, probably get hit in the head with a Celsius if you don't watch out.
Don't stare too long. So that was a really fun night. Now Saturday is Pro Bikini Day, and I think they did a really good job of like letting the athletes know what time the show was going to start, the order of events. So because I had the pass for the booth, those seats that were reserved, we were allowed to sit in there. So me and Lexie went over there at we went over there an hour early, right, Lexie? We went over there at 11, and I think it started at 12. So we actually watched the wheelchair bodybuilders. Very, very emotional
Yeah.
young man from India that actually won the Arnold, beating the 6-time Arnold and 6-time Olympia champion, Harold King Kong Kelly. I've seen that guy win all the shows. So, and this kid had just won his pro card last year, won his pro debut, and got invited to the Arnold. So, I think he's undefeated. I think that if my math is
Yeah,
correct.
And the
it was
coolest thing about the wheelchair division too is they actually went over like how they were injured while they're in the wheelchair, like what kind of,
Yep.
how able they were allowed to move. And this particular guy, he had just got sick and got an
Yeah.
injection that went wrong and
Yeah.
lost use of his legs, which is
Yeah. And
crazy.
what's cool? I like the guy that I think it's Sean Kelly. I forget the guy's name. The Nick Kelly. He does all the announcing. Um, the first thing, like at the end of his thing, he says, "Listen, this is not about pity. This is about power." Right. And he was so thankful that the NPC and the IFBB have this division for these guys. So it's always cool to see that. And honestly, I was like, oh, we got to watch this. And by the end, I was like, oh man, it's over. It
So
was
cool. Yeah.
watch.
It was, yeah, it was really great to watch them. It's just, I mean, it's so inspirational. There's a guy at my gym. I see him there frequently. I mean, I don't think he's a bodybuilder, but he's in a wheelchair, and I always see him training. And it's just, it's really cool to see. It's humbling for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So the nice thing about the pro bikini is 11 people, like it was so easy to just go to the side of the stage. Tavia came out. I got to see her. Her tan was off. So I told her, go, see if they'll touch you up. But it's just 11 people. Like the Olympia is like almost 60 girls. So like by the time they come out in their 8 or 9 groups, there's 60 individual routines. They come out for call outs. It's like an hour and a half, 2 hours. The whole show is over in 20, 30 minutes when there's 11 people, maybe less. It's so quick.
It was really quick because I know I was thinking that the Angel Fashion Show, which was right after prejudging, I was like, they had it on the schedule at like 12:30 or something, and I was thinking, oh, it's definitely not going to happen. Then it'll be later. But no, I mean, prejudging for bikini, it was really quick, and then everything else afterwards started on time. So, yeah, it was really neat. And I know, yeah, Paul and I got to sit with your client Erin, and we got to watch prejudging, and it was just, yeah, really cool. We had pretty good seats. We were right in the center, so.
I always get to the middle. I don't care if I'm close. I care if I'm middle,
Mhm.
because that's the athletes are always posing to the head judge. So in my mind, I want to see the poses as they're presented to the head judge. And then so I got right in the middle. Literally, I always try to go by the cameraman. I'm friends with most of the guys at this point, so I always try to get near them because if that's where they're at, makes sense. That's where you want to film from. Granted, I don't have their level of equipment, but the footage I got from prejudging was fantastic on my phone. So I guess let's transition now. Let's talk about the bikini standard because, that's the other part of this podcast that this show, along with like the first national show of the year, and even the Arnold amateur, it kicks off the criteria being met for the division. I didn't see anything at the Arnold amateur that made me suggest that things were different, but I did notice the competitors that placed higher at the pro were leaner. They were very tight. Specifically Vanya, which I loved her look, but I also feel like I've had competitors at the pro level come in that lean and get told you're too hard. So maybe this year they're starting off a little bit more focusing on, okay, we need to see these details because Laura Lee, I don't think she was at her all-time best, was very lean.
Yeah, that's the
Amy,
first thing you said when she came out, is you just said, I don't feel like this is her best. You said you thought she looked a little bit smaller. And maybe that was because I know her feedback from Olympia was to downsize her glutes. So, but
downsize her lower body. I think her legs and her
yeah,
glutes. And I don't know how much of that was body fat and how much of that was muscle. She definitely did her job and came
yeah.
down.
Yeah.
I
Well,
thought she looked a little thinner, almost like she looked 2 years ago when she got moved out of that top 4 at the Olympia, but it was still enough to beat Amy. And I think I was going, okay, based on the Olympia standard, which we just saw in December or November, felt like Amy was closer to Jen than Laura Lee was. Now, there is an X factor with Laura Lee. I mean, she's literally at her own show. The show stops when she comes out and hits that front pose. And she really took her posing routine to a whole nother level, which is saying something because the girls don't pose long now. They literally just walk out, hit a front, back, front. She did that with so much flair that it was almost like, wow, we are here witnessing Laura Lee's best ever stage presentation. So maybe that had something to do with it too.
It was
Yeah,
captivating. You talk about like the eye test and someone that grabs your eye when she walked out there. Like you said, everyone stopped. I mean, it was
Yeah.
hard not to watch her and appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things too that probably why Vanya placed as high as she did is her stage presence was great too. She just, I mean, it's kind of cool too when you look at like let's say the top three, Amy, Lorelai, and Vanya. They all have very different styles with their posing. So I guess what we're not trying to say is like you have to copy Lorelai's posing to do well, but I mean, Vanya and Lorelai and Amy, I mean, they all have great posing, but I do think that's probably one thing that gave Lorelai an edge is just her posing was just captivating. I think like she steps out on stage and it's almost like everybody just like stops what they're doing and stares. She has that wow factor. So, yeah, but I was kind of thinking by the end of prejudging that Amy was going to take it cuz like you said, Paul, she kind of fit more of that like what they rewarded at the Olympia. But I mean, Laura ended up getting it and it was cool cuz it was literally by 1 point. So it wasn't like a big difference. It was Laura won by 1 point.
If I had to guess, I've spoken to all the judges, but I did it on behalf of my athlete and I didn't dig into like why. I'll probably do that later on in the season. But if I had to guess, they were struggling. They were like, "Ooh, what do we do here?" I dug up some pictures because I wanted for my own knowledge. I looked at Amy. I think, in my opinion, Amy's best look was probably the 2022 Olympia. She had a little bit more detail in her hip, a little bit more detail in her lower back. So she was a little leaner then, but now she has more glutes. Her shoulders are always fantastic. Her shape is always wild. So like, I don't know what the difference was. And she was visibly, I don't want to, let down or like, I'm sure because we were thinking like she might be winning this. I'm sure her camp was thinking the same thing. So when they said the 1 point difference, I looked at Evan and I go, Amy's winning. Because whenever I hear that 1 point difference, it usually goes the other way. It goes towards the person that was the champ that they're trying to say, like, okay, it was close, champ, but yeah. And then they said, Amy in second. So there was definitely, between Tyler, Steve, and Bill, and who else did I see up on that panel? Etala. There was definitely some dissension or some conversations about, okay, what are we going to do here? Because it's not clear.
The
So it, yeah.
my kind of thought with it was, and I know this is my opinion on it, is I think if she had a little bit more hamstring, it would have tied everything together just a little bit
They
more
do
because her
not want to see
glutes are
the
so
hamstrings, but
dominant.
what you were talking about is in her
Is
front
in her
pose.
front pose, in her front pose.
And I don't know, like I don't know her muscle insertions, I'm not her coach, but her glute tie-ins are so long on her front pose and there's so much bubble there. I almost wonder if like there is,
Could
but I
be.
don't know if that was her feedback. If I was looking at that physique, like I said, I looked at her 2022 pictures because, you see these competitors over and over again, and Amy's always so consistent with her look. I just
Mhm.
noticed in 2022, again, different lighting, different stage. She had a little bit more detail in that hip dip, which is the division between the quad and the glute in the front pose. Not everybody even gets that. It's, but she had a little more, and she had a little more tie-in visible, and her waist looked a little sharper. Like maybe a little bit of lower back. Now again, it could just be peaking, it could be filling that, it could be the lighting on the stage. I don't know, but that's where my eye went. I was thinking, I think I've seen her have more hip dip, right? Whereas like Vanya's hip dip was deep, very clear defined tie-ins, you know, very defined capped shoulders. Like, I mean, you could see the whole shoulder, not striated, but completely capped. So yeah, I mean, I think Vanya probably came out with the most, like, she nailed it. Like out of all the competitors, she had the most complete, like head to toe look from the eye test, right? But Laura Lee is just so impressive too. So it's like, okay,
Right, right. And it was neat to I mean, I was really looking forward to seeing Angelica back on stage,
yep.
and just seeing what she would look like after, two kids, not even just two kids, but like they're really young. It's not like it's been that long since she had her second one. So that was really neat to see kind of her return on stage and the package that she brought.
Yeah, I was impressed. I mean, obviously she's got a great look and she brought fantastic conditioning. I saw her, when I was with Tavia by the side of the stage, she ran by me and she's like, she was very frazzled. She's like, they're yelling at us. They're yelling at us to get on stage. And I actually pointed on the stage. I said, no, they're actually still doing the wheelchair. I'm like, you got to take a deep breath, Angelica. And I think when you haven't competed in a while, we just talked about this the other day. Your first show back, I don't care if she's two-time Olympia, two-time Arnold champion. I don't know how many pro shows she's won, how many shows she's done. It's been 3 years. You forget about the backstage people yelling at you.
Yeah.
And I
It's
just wanted to
that
be like,
hurry up and
Angelica, they're not starting the show without two-time Miss Olympia, you know? So she was a little frazzled. So I don't know if that impacted anything. I think looking at her physique and the reason she was solidly in third for a couple rounds and they just moved her out at the end for Vanya. I think it's a balance issue. I think her glute overpowers her shoulder. Her legs don't match her glutes. And we're talking about fractions. It's definitely something that can change with a posing, with a training in the next couple weeks. We'll see, because she signed up to do the UK Arnold, right? So
Oh, is she? I know.
she's on the UK Arnold. Actually, I think Amy's not on there, right? But it's like
Yeah. Amy is
three,
not.
three was Vanya, 4 was Angelica, 5 was Phoebe, Tavia was 8. They're all going.
Interesting.
I don't
Oh,
know if the young lady that got 6th, Eli, she's probably going. Fernandez.
oh, yes. Yeah, she probably is. And she's kind of one I suspected maybe a little bit of like a dark horse at the show, because she's just
Yeah,
always consistent.
she's
But
always
she
consistent.
Yeah, she is a very small competitor, very petite. I think she's maybe like 5 foot, maybe even a little below that. But
Mhm.
I mean, gosh, I mean, 6 is still pretty darn good. And I'm happy to see that Phoebe got fifth as well.
Yeah, Phoebe, she's always one that, like, her physique can change so much. I mean, we saw her last year at the Hurricane way off, and then we saw her 2 weeks later at the Olympia, like, whoa, like she just nailed it. And then this one, I feel like it was kind of in between those two. She wasn't as on as she went at the Olympia, but she definitely wasn't off. It was just,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
So I'll be curious to see what she brings. I know I got my feedback for Tavia, which we can talk about. Um, but as far as the setting the standard for the bikini year, um, I mean, 1 and 3 were extremely lean, like extremely lean. Now
Yep.
they did fill out nicely, but I saw some off stage pictures of them and I saw them in person. I mean, they were like, Laurel's face. I don't know if I've ever seen it that lean.
Oh, yes. I saw a training video of her at the pros gym. Maybe it was like 1 day out, 2 days out. And I mean, of course, granted, she was training and you could see lots of just like striations, but I don't
Yeah.
feel like you really saw that on stage, just with her posing and her presentation.
Well,
Just
yeah, I
filling
mean,
it out. But
striations are, when you're training, the muscles are fuller, you're also sweating, so there's some of that subcutaneous water loss. So you look kind of crazy at the end of a workout. When you get on stage, especially if you're filling out, which I believe she does, she eats into the show,
mm,
those muscles kind of smooth out a little bit. Also, you're not training on stage, you're
yeah.
not pumping up. I told Tavia, do not touch your shoulders, do not grab a weight, don't hold a band, because she has some, vascularity in her arms, which I'm very happy that had nothing to do with our feedback. We got 0 feedback about her upper body being too hard. So we nailed that. So the 1 and 3 were I felt like Vanya and Laur stood out conditioning wise, on that stage. Like, okay, that's and in fact, when I spoke to Sandy yesterday about, Otavia's changes that we need to make, I basically was like, so we need to match that level of conditioning with Otavia to move up. And she was like, yep. She's like, don't get any harder in the upper body. Just get lower in the leaner. And she's like, I'm not a trainer. I don't know how you do it. You guys know how to do it. And I said, well, honestly, like, it's pretty easy, because the upper body gets lean first and then the lower body. So it's not like if we get 2 pounds leaner, it's going to come off of her shoulders. It's going to come off her glutes now. So
Yeah.
that's the, and I think as a coach and as an athlete, you just want to know what the target is and go after it. The most frustrating thing for coaching and athletes is, like, you set your target, you go after it, you get it, and then you get to a show and they reward something that you're like,
Yeah, Octavia, she was gorgeous on stage. I really liked too, like just a small detail. I loved her suit color. I think that really, no pun intended, suited her well. Like I loved it.
yeah,
But yeah, she was very captivating on stage. Just a gorgeous person, and it was also really neat too. I think it's so cool how the overall winner of the Arnold Amateur gets an automatic invitation.
yeah,
So it was neat to see the girl who won last year. I think her name's Rhoda. It was just it's really neat to just kind of see how they stack up against like
Oh yeah,
domestic.
and she
You
competed
know?
last year, and I mean, top to bottom, she's complete. You know,
Yeah.
she's got some really long tie-ins, so it's gonna be a little bit harder for her to fill out the top of her glutes. But I think that just comes with the territory of being a taller competitor. But her stage presence, her physique, she's definitely going to be a competitive pro. You know, I saw her a couple times last year, and I did she move? Maybe she got a top five. You know, my fault, Rhoda, if you're listening. I don't remember. But this was hands down a fantastic physique, and so I'm sure she's going to hopefully roll into the season and do well. But I will say, like, the whole lineup looked great. There was no one that was like, there were people that were not at their personal best, but everybody looked great, which, you know, you expect it because it's the Arnold, but still good to see. It was a bummer that Issa wasn't there because of her health issue, but it would have been interesting to pop her in that lineup. And is she winning? Is she 2? Is she 3? Is she 4? Like, where was she going to be?
That would have been really interesting now that we're thinking about it, considering that we think, I mean, we with like Vanya and Lauralee, how they were a little bit leaner. Issa tends to come in a little bit leaner, specifically to get her glute conditioning where it needs to be. So it would have been interesting to see
Yep.
if she would have been in the mix. I mean, who knows? It could have been her against Lauralee. Maybe Amy would have stayed up there. It would have been neat to see. So
Very, very interesting. Had she been in that lineup, and hopefully she gets back because, you know, she's a champion. I love Issa. She's a champion. Like, she's been knocked down in the sport where some of the girls might have just been like, okay, I'm done. Nope, she comes back and gets better. And so I'm sure she's going to do it again. But it does change the dynamic of that show for sure, because she wasn't there very much, because she might have been like a blend of a Lauralee and Amy, as much muscle as Amy in shape,
ah,
but as conditioning closer to Lauralee's, and her stage presence is, you know, as good as Lauralee's. It's second to none. So yeah, it's just any lineup she's in, she's a threat, including the Arnold and Olympia. So it would have been, but I think, you know, my thought is for the bikini criteria balance, I think that's what moved Angelica out. I
mhm.
think her conditioning was good enough. It wasn't a conditioning issue. I don't think that they thought, oh, Vanya's leaner. I think Vanya's shoulders, glutes, quads, hamstrings match better.
Mhm.
Um,
It just flowed very well. Like,
yes.
you didn't look at her physique and you weren't just like drawn to like one thing immediately, right? Everything
No,
was just kind of, it flowed. Nothing, no one part was just great. Everything was good, right? Like, which is what you want in a bikini. You want everything to just flow
it
from top.
wasn't good. It was great. Like,
Oh,
she
okay,
was great. Yeah.
everything was great on her.
Everything matched greatly.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Yes, yeah, she
Yeah.
looked really good. But yeah, balance, proportions, and I mean stage presence too. I mean, I don't know if that's exactly what it came down to between Laura Lee and Amy, but I mean, Laura
I
Lee's
think if I'm thinking, I think that's, to me, was Laura Lee was up there and it felt like it was her show.
yeah, with the stage presence, yeah. And that's another thing I noticed at the amateur show is the girl that won the overall, Stacy. I mean, she had beautiful stage presence and she just
Yep.
looked happy to be there. She looked confident, like she owned her routine. So I think, let this be a lesson. If you're listening, don't I mean, if I know sometimes as a newer competitor, you may be looking to cut costs here and there, but I would not cut costs on posing or, I would not skimp
Well, I
on.
don't even think it's a cost thing. You know, like, Laura Lee does not have a posing coach. She
Yeah.
poses every day. Daraja does not have a posing coach. Daraja's stage presence derives from the fact that she does it so often. She's not thinking, she's performing. And that's what Laura Lee was doing. She wasn't up there thinking like, oh, I got to move my arm here and I got to hold this pose for 3 seconds. She's done it so many times. It probably is down to the music that they play with how she does the rhythm. And that's because she's done it so many times. That's what makes competitors look different up there. I'll never forget the first time I went to nationals with Daraja. People won't remember this. She had a shaved head. She had white
I
hair.
remember that. She got
Yeah,
fourth,
like,
right?
it was 2018, and I had never seen her compete before. She had won an overall in like Jacksonville. I wasn't there. So we go to nationals and she walks out on stage and I was like, holy crap. Even when they called out her group, she walked at her own pace. She had better eye contact. She just carried herself differently. And, you know, you like you said, the eye test when you're in person, the judges notice that crap. Like,
Mhm.
they're sitting there looking at the people come out minute after minute. There's athlete after athlete, and you can sense it when someone comes out and just demands your attention. And that was Laura Lee. She demanded the attention.
Absolutely, absolutely. Posing stage presence is huge. That balance is huge. Let's see what else. I mean, what else do
I
we want
think
to
that's
talk
what moved Angelica out. I think it was
about?
just a matter of like, because they kept her in there in that 2-3 position for a while, and they just bumped her out at the last call out. And I thought it's just the balance issue because my eye kept going to her glute and her front pose,
Yeah,
which kind of same thing with Amy, but Amy's got a little more shoulder and a little more quad to match,
Yeah.
whereas Angelica's a little glute dominant.
I feel like Angelica can open up enough too in her front post too, and she's not the biggest in the upper body.
She's not wide through here, so she's got to really fine tune that.
Yeah,
She
and it
doesn't
was
have
kind of
like
closed
width.
off.
Yeah.
I
But
was I thought it was neat. She definitely I think filled out pretty well because I saw some of her pictures. I mean, I know pictures on Instagram are not the same as seeing somebody in person, but I saw her also at the athlete meet and greet 2 days before. And I mean, I have a picture with her. She was very vascular, like not only in her head, but like all along her.
you're probably just eating a meal.
Yeah, probably right. But she filled out really well because I don't feel like that was distracting by any means on stage.
Well, and that's kind of what, like this show for me with Otavia after prejudging was another opportunity. We had a few hours. I talked to Elise from Pro Tan. I said, hey, like we're way too light. And I'm like, her tan at Olympia, I pulled it up. I was like, it was perfect. Well, at Olympia, she had one more day, right? She had tanned one more day. So I said, can you get her fixed for finals? And she's like, absolutely. Have her show up before. So we had her do that. I also had her go eat a big meal with a lot of sodium. I think I had about 1,000 milligrams of sodium to her next meal, like 60 carbs. And I said, go take a nap, go relax. And she came back to finals without any nerves. Tan was better, much fuller. And I have that video on my Instagram. I love that look. That is a
Right.
potential top 10 bikini pro this year in the world, right? So we fine tune some things. Her structure is striking. Her face is striking. Her balance is like she's muscular. Like I trained with her the day before, and the weights she was using, I was like, damn, dude, like this is supposed to be light for you. And she's converting the kilos to pounds, and I'm giving her like the 30-pound dumbbells for shoulders. She's like, too light. I'm like, damn, dude, she needs like for light for her was like 35s,
Yeah.
which is
She
top
she
end
has,
for,
she
yeah.
has a lot of muscle maturity.
Yeah. So she's got the muscle. It's just going to be coming down a little bit more. And I think making sure we're filled out. I actually sent her back to Italy with a bunch of the core nutritionals makes a hydrate product. So I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, we're going to have one of those on the morning of the show, in your water. So
That's awesome. Yeah,
so
she'll definitely be one to watch. And what's her next show? She's doing the
Arnold,
Arnold.
UK.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
we got a few days. And so that was really nice. I got feedback from Bill, and yesterday I got feedback from Tyler and Sandy. So that's really nice. Those are the 3 head judges. So it's really nice to have that like immediate input. You know, they want the athletes to be the best and that they can be. And Bill told me that's the best he's ever seen at Tavia. Bill told me he had her a little higher, like, so there was definitely some discussions going on at that table about who should be where. But I agreed. I agreed with her placing, and I agreed she could be better, especially at prejudging. I think had she shown up at prejudging like she did at finals, it would have been interesting to see if we could have gotten into that first call out. But I mean, that top 6, can't complain about it. I mean, Eli Fernandez in 6th, Phoebe in 5th. I mean, these are some of the top competitors in the world. So we've got, and that's the job for me and Tavia. She's been to the Olympia. Now the job for us is to move into that conversation for the first call out at the Olympia. That's my job with her this year. And I think we're on our way. I'm excited about it. Of course, it's going to depend how the year goes. My goal is to give her some rest. She's been competing a lot. So if we can get her qualified early, give her some rest, that'll be good. But the bikini standard for me so far is bring that conditioning
Yeah.
and fill out.
Yes.
That's
Agreed.
pretty much it.
Balance,
And I
conditioning.
really like the post that Becky put up too about everyone can have different structures, but it's about maximizing what you have. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that Laur Lee did what they asked him to do, and she came in better, and that got rewarded, especially mixed with the stage presence.
Yeah.
And I think look, they have very different structures. Laur Lee and Amy, very different builds, but they both brought what the judges wanted to with their specific physique.
Yeah.
And I think that's always something for people to remember is you can't chase a physique that you're not built like. Um, we all have certain structures and certain strengths, and we all have lagging body parts we need to grow, obviously, to be our best. But it's about maximizing what you have based on your structure.
It's going
Yeah.
to be very interesting to see how the year unfolds. I don't think most people realize that nobody from that stage except Laura got qualified. Now Angelica's qualified because she's won the Olympia, but all those other girls are going to have to filter into shows now. So Amy is not qualified for the next Olympia. Does she shut it down and come out at the end of the year? Does she wait another month and do Clash or Wasatch Warrior and try to get qualified early in the year and then risk running into some of the girls coming out like Ashley Kaltwasser, right? So it's going to get those first couple shows are going to be very interesting. And for me, I was picturing, okay, had Daraja or Ari, who probably would have got selected if they applied, been there, what would have happened? The thing I told Daraja was, Daraja, not for nothing, I think if we brought the look that Vanya had on your physique, we might have won that show. Same thing I told Ari. I said, Ari, if we bring the look that you had at the end of the season to this show, you're definitely getting looked at for the win. So it's exciting to start to put the pieces together for the shows that are coming up, the Clash, the Wasatch, the Pittsburgh Pro, New York Pro. I'm probably forgetting a few. And now I got to pay attention to the freaking European circuit. So I'm already looking at the UK show on April 6th. So it's yeah.
Yeah, exciting stuff coming up. And I mean, it's crazy. I don't even feel like normally we think, okay, there's like a little bit of that break in between the seasons, but I don't even feel like there was a break this year. I don't know. I mean, it seems like January, February went by so quickly, and then we had Command the Stage in February. I went to the women's conference in January, so it seems like everything is just kind of spilled over. And
Well,
now,
and you had nationals December
yeah,
8th, and the Atlantic Coast, was that the week before it might have been the week before. Yeah, it was definitely like the 21st or 22nd of November, right? So that was the last pro qualifier for the Olympia next year. So it hasn't been that long. It really hasn't. And that's why a lot of people were like, why didn't you put Ari in the Arnold? And I'm like, dude, she did 7 shows.
yeah,
It's not going to make her better. Our goal is not to win the Arnold. I love the Arnold. That's not our goal. Not right now. The goal is to win the Olympia. So I'm putting her in a position to do that. So she's actually going to be really refreshed, and she's starting prep today. Give her a date night. And so we're going to be on the hunt for, if she's ready for Pittsburgh, we'll do it. If not, we're not going to put the contract in, but she's 6 or 7 pounds over her last stage weight.
yeah.
So
It'll be interesting too this year because this is the first year they're doing the pro shows a little bit different, where you have to put in your contract ahead of time and be approved, right? So that'll
yeah, the
be,
Pittsburgh is not one where you worry about that. It's the smaller
yeah,
shows where list comes out on Monday, and then you go, okay, there's no one in this show who's showing up to take the title.
right,
Yeah.
right.
You got a whole list of girls that have been to the Olympia 4 or 5 times that they're smart. They're like, I'm not going to waste my energy. I'm not going to go to a show where I might not win. Let's go get our qualification. And so there's strategy to it. I employed it too in the past. I'm actually excited for it to be this way, because there used to be a show would come out with a list and I'd have Lana on the list and be like, ooh, Lana just got second. She's the best competitor here. We're really good. And then the morning of the show, you go, oh man, no, a top 10 Olympian just jumps in. So not going to be that way anymore. There's probably going to be some lineups this year where there's no Olympians, which is pretty rare.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be neat to see. Where are you guys? So talking about, I guess, the next thing we have coming up, where are you guys at next? Travel wise, show wise? Any idea?
Clash is it, right?
Flash, March 30th. I may go to, I think Joe has his seminar 2 weekends before that he's putting on. I think Brittany Hamilton is going to be there.
I'll be there. I'm
You're going
doing
to go.
Physique Posing. Yep.
Yeah, I may go. I may have a couple clients I'm going to go with. So that'll be.
I'll talk to Misty about what I have going on that weekend. If Sloan has an important soccer match, I might go because he's doing really good at soccer. And then once the season gets going, it's really impossible for me to go to anything. So I may skip that one. But yeah, the Clash is going to be exciting. Brittany Hamilton's deep in prep. Lana's pretty far along in prep. I've got some some pros that have been away from the stage for a little bit. They're coming out. So I'll have some really good pros at the Clash, roll right into like Wasatch and some of those other shows.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a fun start to the year. Even I've got some NPC girls that are looking spectacular. So yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. And it's nice because it's in our backyard. So the first show of the year, we get to cruise over to Orlando. We'll all hang out. We'll set up the bikini booth and we'll have some
Mhm.
fun.
Yeah, and then girl power after
Like girl
that.
power.
There's another class show in May. I feel like there's like 3 back to back, March, April, May. So that'll be
Yeah, and I
cool.
think Sandy's judging most of those, if not all of them. Maybe one she's not.
Yeah, there's actually, what's interesting? I don't know if she's judging this one. I think didn't Joe announced a class show in Wyoming this year too. I can't remember when it
Yeah.
is, but I think it's a little bit later in the year, maybe late
Yep.
summer, maybe fall, but that's kind of cool because normally they're either all in Florida or
And he also has one back in South Carolina again, which he hasn't had in a while.
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. So, and I look, when I looked at the pro list this year for pro bikini shows, I was like, wow, I feel like there's some new shows. You know, obviously there's the one at Junior Nationals, which is very cool because Friday will be the national show for bikini, and then all the pro card winners are able to compete Saturday as a pro, albeit I'm sure there's going to be some stacked pros there because it's, you know,
That'll
middle
be
of
really
June.
neat to see. Yeah, I listened to Sandy did a live on Instagram last week with Becky, and she was talking a lot about that show. And I mean, it'll be interesting to see those pros, those new pros, newly turned pros, if they choose to compete at the pro show, which I don't know why they wouldn't. Like, it'll be neat to see if like how they do.
Yeah, I mean, I promise you, the overall winner is going to get looked at the next
Oh
day. I
yeah.
mean, because they basically are winning a pro show the day before,
Mhm.
right? They're competing against 7 other new pros. So you're immediately, if you win an overall at a national show, go compete as a pro. You're ready to get compared and looked at. You may still need some work, or you might just be, you know, Daraja just went straight into the Olympia at one show in. So
Yeah.
you know what, strike while the iron's hot.
Yeah, I think the last year's overall winner at Junior Nationals was Ali Vothauer,
Yeah,
and I
she
mean,
had 2 second places.
Mhm.
yeah,
She was in the
she
middle with
really-
Ariana at
Nashville,
Nashville
right?
when she won her first pro show. It was Allie, and I was like, I was nervous all day because Allie looked amazing. You know,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. Ali won the overall at the DC Pro, and then won the overall at Junior Nats, and then went on to do very very well in her rookie pro season. And I mean,
yeah.
she was right there for that O qualification. I think she's in prep right now, so it'll be interesting to see how she does
I
this.
feel like if she would have just, I think she got second in another show in California
Tahoe, I think.
when Ariel Barley beat her, and I feel like she could have done one more show and got qualified. But again, got qualified to go to the O, to not really place super high. It's you're pushing your body. If she took the time off and now is coming back better, that's awesome. You know, like
Mhm.
Yeah.
you know, it's an honor to go to the Olympia, but if you're chasing something that makes you worse in the long run, you know, that's not always a great thing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Being self-aware, and you know, that's Daraja this year. We're taking the whole year off. We're not trying to qualify for the Olympia this year. She's trying to live her life this year. So we're going to run it back next year. We may apply for the Arnold. That might be her first show of next year. And it's already had a positive impact on her. You know, when I asked her, because I just saw her 2 weekends in a row, like, why do you feel like you've had such a better post-show experience? And she's like, because I'm not trying to squeeze it all into 12 weeks. You know, like last year, she was like, I got to get all this stuff done. She traveled, she did all this stuff. She ended up putting on more body fat than I think either of us wanted, but that's life. But this year she's staying leaner with less effort. And it's because she's not like, I got to do all this stuff right away.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it just goes to our philosophy that we always talk about as coaches. Like, the easy thing to do would be to run somebody into the ground, put them on stage, just always like as like I don't say a billboard, but to put somebody on stage all the time. But we actually care about our competitors as people and humans and, outside of the sport of competing too.
Yeah, you try to have strategy there. I don't think everyone understands the pressure of competing once you start moving up the sport. Literally, promoters, judges, people are in your ear about what show you're doing. They want you to do. And, you know, in years past, you know, let's say I hadn't gone through this with Daraja, I probably would have had Ari apply for the Arnold. But you know, and she wanted to. Ari, like she doesn't ever want to stop prepping. Like she was like can we do another show? Can we do like she probably would be doing Clash if I let her. But I said, no, we have to. We had our shows. We have to take a break. And it worked out perfect because she wanted to get augmentation surgery. So her front pose is insane now. Insane. Like that, it really is adding to her shape. Like I'm looking at her front pose going, geez, like, yeah, she's going to look fantastic this year. But had we stayed in prep, done the Arnold, who knows what would have come of this year. And, you know, looking back, you know, we'll see. But my goal is not to win the Arnold. You know, my goal is to win the Olympia. Along the way, I hope to win an Arnold or two. But, you know, I want to make sure that we're putting people in position, you know, like Brittany Hamilton. You should see her right now. She is looking super wow. And it's because we shut her down last year in April because her body was tired. And I said, let's just take this F trying to get to the Olympia and not be at your best. You've been to the Olympia. So she's going to come out swinging early this season. Same thing with Lana. We took the whole year off. So yeah, it's individual, but the bikini standard doesn't change. The judges don't forget you. Come out with the wow factor and just do the thing.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, I think that wraps up the Pro Physique code for today, guys.
I think so. And I guess also if we met you at the Arnold, thank you for like I love when people come up and say they listen to the podcast and they just thank us for putting out the information that we do, because we all do really love this, and I think we just want to generally spread as much good information as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll call it information. You know, you guys can decide if it's good or not, but I put obviously my reputation on the things that we talk about. And yeah, we're actually talking about doing some free seminars this year. So, you know, keep your eyes and ears open. It's going to be a fun year.
It will. It
Absolutely.
will.
All right. You guys have a good day. Thank you for listening to the Pro Physique Code.
All right. Bye, guys.